Elliott.
And I'm Ed Holen. Welcome again to this special budget edition of the Olympia Insider.
Today we're going to talk about what the governor has proposed as budget alternatives for the special session that's coming up.
You know, it's quite remarkable to me. I can't remember a time when the governor has actually come out with some alternatives before she issues her formal budget proposal.
No, I think this is a unique time just because of the economic circumstances that we're facing. Last week, right after the governor's press conference, I spoke with Andi Smith, the governor's policy person for developmental disabilities, and she gave us a context of what we're facing this coming session.
We're 6 months into the biennium. We have a $32 billion state general fund, of which we can only really touch $8.6 billion. So that means we have to take $2 billion out of 8.6, which means the 23-24% cut. And we have to do that, and I think the governor did a great job of that, explaining it this morning, based on a lot of circumstances beyond our control. You know, we don't have a state income tax, so we rely heavily on the sales tax. And consumers aren't comfortable right now. They're not spending money. And that has to do with Congress, that has to do with Wall Street, that has to do with the European debt crisis. There are many things out of our control. But what we do have to control, and what we actually have a statute that mandates us to do, is to create a balanced budget. The developmental disabilities budget is one that is particularly ugly in terms of the proposed eligibility changes. I mean, I think that 3 years ago, none of us who were working in this environment would ever have thought that we would have gotten to this point. And so when I look at the eligibility changes, especially what came out from the department at the, I think it was $205 million level, about $80 million for DD, 8,000 people who would see their services gone. That I think is the big enchilada on the table, and the thing that we need to work really hard to try and mitigate. There is a lot of road to travel, and you know, in the next 3 weeks, like the governor said this morning, we're going to do our work on what the revenue might look like. And I can't underscore enough that we have a budget to produce by statute that has to be balanced. And so as much as we can, we are going to rely on advocates and community members to give us some ideas that they can live with. And that has to be a spectrum of cuts. But then, as the governor said this morning, we're also looking at revenue.
We don't know what the final decisions are going to be, but even with the alternatives, there's still going to be people that lose services.
Right. If you look at the Division of Developmental Disabilities section of her budget, you still have cuts to eligibility. They're not as dramatic as what the department had proposed, but it still proposed reductions to eligibility, so some people would be or could be dropped from services.
One of the things I learned in looking at the alternatives are the programs that are funded only with state dollars. Some employment, for example, individual and family support that's only funded with state dollars are clearly on the chopping block.
Right, and another proposal that they're looking at is combining the basic and basic plus waiver, reducing the amount that an individual might get, but then having the family and the individual having more choice over what services they would receive.
And I think another area that's going to directly impact people is the elimination of dental services, except for emergencies, and the elimination of across-the-counter pharmacy type services.
Right, big impacts to people. The other thing the governor's proposing is to close Rainier. That would be the fourth institution that we have that's in Buckley, and I think serves about 350 people.
So again, we don't know what the final decisions are going to be, but hopefully this gives you some flavor of the types of cuts that are being considered at this point in time.
And what we recommend to you is that you look for this budget document online, you look at it, you see what things you like, the things that you have challenges with, and you let Andi know through her email address, and you contact her and say, this is what we like, this is what we're having challenges with, and if you have any alternatives, because they're looking at alternatives on, if you don't like something, come up with something else that has an equal amount of funding.
And don't forget the special rally that is going to happen on November 28th. We invite everybody to come down to Olympia on the very first day of the special session and let their voices be heard.
And remember, change is made by those who show up.